There is a strange silence in the aftermath of pain, a silence that echoes louder than screams, a quiet that doesn't bring peace, but a suffocating stillness. You've known that silence, the kind that visits after betrayal, after heartbreak, after you've been wounded by those who were supposed to protect you, when your peace was snatched from your soul like a thief in the night, and you were left lying in the ruins of trust. You carried their guilt like it was yours. You took the blame they twisted into your back and wore it like a crown of thorns. And while they walked away unbothered, unscarred, seemingly untouched by the chaos they caused, you were left to rebuild your spirit in secret. They moved on with a smile, and you were left with insomnia. They laughed while you cried behind closed doors. They celebrated while you mourned the version of yourself they broke. You tried to stay kind. You stayed quiet. You didn't seek revenge, but you watched, waited, and wondered, does God see this? Yes. He sees, He knows, and He remembers. You see, when they took your peace, they weren't just playing with your emotions. They were offending the God who watches over the broken-hearted. When they made light of your tears, they mocked not just your feelings, but the divine spirit that formed you. And God, though slow to act in the eyes of men, is never absent. What they stole from you was sacred, your peace, your trust, your innocence. And now the same silence that haunted you will follow them. The same unrest that crept into your soul night after night will start knocking at their door. People think they can injure someone's spirit and walk away unmarked. But what they fail to realize is that God does not sleep on injustice. He is the God of recompense. Not always fast, but always precise. Their peace will become a mirage. What once gave them joy will suddenly lose its taste. What once gave them comfort will now feel hollow. Their thoughts will become their tormentors, their past actions the voices that echo in their minds when they try to rest. You tried to move on. You begged for healing. You prayed for understanding. And though the nights were long, you never cursed them. That's why God fights for you now, not with weapons made by man, but with justice wrapped in silence. They won't even know why they're restless. They won't understand why sleep avoids them, why peace becomes elusive, why they feel surrounded by a weight they cannot name. But you will know. You will recognize the hand of God, not because you wished them pain, but because you handed your pain to Him. This is not about revenge. It's not about watching others suffer. It's about divine balance, about the sacred exchange that happens in the heavens when someone unjustly robs another's peace. It is written that God is near to the broken-hearted. That means He was with you when you were on the floor, begging for peace, and He's with you now as He begins to reclaim what was stolen from your spirit. The path to healing begins when you stop chasing closure from those who closed the door and walked away. Some people were never meant to return your peace. They were meant to lose theirs. Because peace is not something you can steal and keep. It doesn't work that way. Peace is spiritual currency, and when you rob someone of it, there is always a spiritual debt. And make no mistake, they are in debt. While they pose smiles and pose as if untouched by the damage they caused, their soul is unsettled. The smile is a mask. The confidence is a costume. Because when God starts disturbing someone's peace, there is no medication, no vacation, no distraction strong enough to silence that divine unrest. You will begin to notice something strange. The people who once laughed in your face will start avoiding your presence, not because you've changed, but because your peace has returned, and it convicts their guilt. You will carry peace like a garment while they sweat in their own anxiety. You will sleep soundly while they wrestle in the dark. God has not forgotten you. He has not ignored the injustice. He has simply waited for the appointed time. And when that time comes, peace will return to you as a flood, and they will drown in the absence of it. They will look around and feel what you felt, alone, anxious, misunderstood. They will begin to lose interest in the things that once excited them. They will begin to feel disconnected from people, from places, from purpose, because they were never supposed to steal your peace. And now what was once a temporary mistake becomes a lifelong lesson. This is God's justice. It is not loud, but it is lasting. It is not explosive, but it is precise. You will not need to speak for yourself. You will not need to explain the pain. God has already measured it. He has already written the compensation, and He will not just restore what you lost. He will ensure that those who caused it will remember. Because divine peace is not only given, it is guarded, and when someone dares to take it from his child, He steps in, not always with thunder, but always with truth. There is something deeply sacred about peace. It's not simply the absence of chaos, it is the quiet assurance that your heart is held by something greater than yourself. When someone steals that peace, they aren't just disrupting your mind, they are violating something eternal, something that was never theirs to touch. And the God who breathed that peace into you, He takes that personally. You may not have seen the shift at first. In fact, it probably looked like they were winning. They smiled in pictures, celebrated with friends, and seemed untouched by the storm they left behind. But appearances are deceptive, because while they moved forward in the world, something inside them was quietly unraveling. The peace they once took for granted now becomes a memory slipping through their fingers. What most people don't realize is that peace isn't stolen like a purse or a possession. It's stolen spiritually, and anything that's stolen spiritually will be repaid spiritually, multiplied and magnified. You wept in silence, you questioned your worth, you begged God for answers, and now, without raising your voice, without lifting a hand, God is answering you. He's taking back what was yours. The same way they took it, quietly behind the scenes without warning, is the same way they will feel it return to you and vanish from their life. They won't know why they're waking up anxious. They won't understand why joy feels distant. They'll try everything to fix it, distractions, substances, relationships, but nothing will fill that space. Because what they disrupted in you wasn't a mood, it was a spiritual center. And God is a jealous protector of that center. You see, the battle is not always external. Sometimes God lets people keep their image while He breaks their peace. It's the most merciful form of justice, because it allows them to appear whole while crumbling inside. It invites them to reflect. It gives them a chance to repent. But if they don't, if they keep pretending, keep running, keep lying, then that unrest only deepens. God doesn't need to shout to make a point. He doesn't need to tear down someone publicly to show His justice. He just takes His hand off their peace. He removes His covering from their conscience, and what once felt light begins to feel heavy. What once felt easy becomes impossible. That's when they start to experience what you went through, except without the grace that carried you through. You, my friend, were sustained by God. Even in your lowest valley, He walked with you. Even when you couldn't sleep, He kept your soul from giving up. You were broken, but not abandoned. You were hurting, but still held. But those who hurt you, they walked away from grace. They rejected the kindness they were given. They mocked your forgiveness. And now that grace begins to lift. Now the silence they left you in becomes the prison they live in. Do not envy their seeming success. Do not believe their lies when they pretend to be okay. What you're witnessing is not peace, it's a performance. And performances don't last. Eventually the curtain falls, and when it does, they will be left alone on that stage, unsure of where the audience went, unsure of how to escape the very reality they created. But you will rise. You will rise, not with pride, but with healing, not with bitterness, but with strength. Because when God restores peace, He doesn't just give it back, He multiplies it. The pain made you wiser, the betrayal made you bolder, the loss made you stronger, and now your peace will be so loud, so vibrant, that those who once wounded you won't be able to ignore it. They'll feel it when you walk into a room. They'll hear it in the calmness of your voice. They'll see it in the way you no longer flinch at their presence. Because peace speaks louder than revenge ever could. Let them lose sleep. Let them wrestle with the silence. Let them wonder why they feel so restless. You don't have to explain. You don't have to defend. God is your defender, and He never forgets the cost of the peace they stole. What you paid in tears, He will repay in glory. What they mocked, He will honor. What they broke, He will rebuild. And what they took, He will return with interest. The story is not over. It never was. They wrote you off too soon. They assumed that because you were quiet, you were weak. But God was writing a chapter they couldn't see. A chapter filled with redemption, strength, and divine justice. A chapter where peace is no longer a victim, it becomes a weapon, a light, a shield. So walk forward, not with vengeance, but with vision. The kind of vision that sees what God is doing behind the scenes. Because while they're losing their peace, you're gaining yours. While they're haunted by their choices, you are comforted by His promises. And in that divine exchange, you will finally understand what peace really means. It's not just silence. It's not just stillness. It's a knowing that you are held, loved, protected, and that those who stole from you will feel the weight of what they've done. In time, there is something you must understand about divine timing. God does not rush justice. He lets it mature in silence. Just as they quietly planted seeds of pain in your life, God is now letting the seeds of consequence grow in theirs. And these seeds grow best in silence, in the hidden places where the noise of the world can't reach them. Only the weight of truth can. You may wonder why they seem unaffected, why their life still moves, why their hands still build, why their name still circulates in rooms of favor. But don't mistake motion for progress. There are people who run from peace, and the further they run, the heavier it gets. You can dress it in luxury, mask it in laughter, pour distraction on top of it, but unrest has a way of sinking deeper. It clings to the soul like shadow, and no matter how far they go, what they stole follows them. Because peace, when stolen, doesn't just vanish. It clings to the conscience of the thief. This is what begins to happen in their spirit. They feel the emptiness, the dull, haunting sense that something isn't right. The guilt begins as a whisper, then grows into an ache. It disrupts their sleep, it pollutes their joy, it stains their victories, because no matter what they achieve, they can't outrun the echo of what they did to you. It may not be visible to the world, but it is loud in the chambers of their heart. They remember the exact moment they chose to lie. They recall the expression on your face when they betrayed you. They replay the moment they turned their back on you, when you needed them the most. They thought time would erase it. But time doesn't erase what the spirit refuses to forget. And the longer they try to bury it, the deeper it rises in their dreams. You see, God is not just a comforter, He is a revealer. He reveals the truth in the places no one sees, in the midnight hour, in the solitude, in the unrest. And when He decides to speak, He doesn't always use words, He uses discomfort. He disrupts their peace the way they disrupted yours, not to destroy them, but to show them what they did, because while you were crying for closure, God was preparing conviction. There are moments coming where they will be forced to remember. They will be in the company of people who unknowingly speak your name. They will see someone who looks like you, and it will rattle their soul. They will scroll past a memory they forgot to delete, and it will choke the breath in their lungs. Because God has a way of reminding them of who they hurt, of what they did, of who they became when they thought no one was watching. They will smile less, laugh less, trust less, not because you wished it, but because peace cannot be stolen and kept. It demands return. It demands recompense. And you, the one who was once left bleeding spiritually, will now walk healed, while they begin to limp with the weight of their choices. This is the justice of heaven, quiet, patient, unrelenting. You won't need to lift a hand. You won't need to seek revenge. You'll simply walk in the light while they begin to wrestle with the shadows. And in that wrestling, something deeper happens. Either they will repent or they will break. Either they will return to God in sorrow or they will be consumed by their own pride. But either way, your peace is no longer in their hands. And isn't that the victory? That you are no longer defined by the pain they gave you. That your identity is not rooted in what they did, but in what God is doing. That while they sit in the torment of delayed consequences, you rise in the grace of divine restoration. Do not be surprised if they try to come back, not because they miss you, but because they miss their peace. You carried peace, and they thought they could steal it. But peace is not transferable by force. It is only received through favor. And when they lost you, they lost access to it. So now they try to rebuild what they shattered, but it won't feel the same. Because peace that's taken through betrayal never rests. It resists, and what they thought they owned now becomes the thing that haunts them. They may search for new connections, new thrills, new distractions, but nothing will soothe the unrest God allows, because it's not punishment, it's awareness. It's God saying, feel what you made them feel, not because I hate you, but because I want you to see. And if they never see, if they never change, then peace will continue to escape them, because peace is not a gift given to those who harm and stay unrepentant. It is a reward for those who stay faithful in pain. You stayed faithful. You didn't retaliate. You didn't curse them. You didn't become like them. And now God honors that. He restores what was taken. He repairs what was broken. And He silences the storm that once drowned your sleep. That silence, it now speaks. It speaks peace. It speaks promise. It speaks power. While their silence begins to scream. Peace, to the ungrateful, feels ordinary. That's why they never valued the calm you brought into their life. They thought your patience was weakness. They saw your silence as surrender. They mistook your loyalty for something cheap. But peace, real peace, is rare. It's powerful. And those who treat it carelessly only realize its worth when it's gone. That's what's happening now. They are realizing, not because you said a word, but because their soul has gone quiet. Their laughter no longer feels joyful. Their victories feel empty. Their nights stretch longer than before, and their mornings begin with a weight they can't name. The same way you used to wake up with a knot in your stomach, not knowing how to fix what they broke. Now they wake up with that same ache. Not because you wished them harm, but because God does not ignore the cries of the wounded. He heard yours. Every time you whispered, "Why did they do this to me?" He was listening. Every time you swallowed pain just to keep the peace, He was writing it down. Every tear you cried in secret became part of His plan for restoration. And now that plan is unfolding, not with a thunderous shout, but with a slow divine reversal. They laughed when you broke, but now they frown in the midst of comfort. They mocked your heartbreak, but now they search for love and find only shadows. They felt powerful when they hurt you, but now that power has turned into regret. Because here's the truth: when someone shatters your peace to protect their pride, they build a prison for their soul, one that looks normal on the outside but is suffocating on the inside. And while the world applauds them, their spirit starts to drown. You once begged God to change them. You asked Him to make them understand. You prayed for restoration, for apology, for peace. But God in His wisdom saw the greater plan. He saw that your growth did not depend on their apology. Your healing would not wait for their recognition. Instead, He gave you something more powerful than their words. He gave you distance, and in that distance, He began to shift everything. He removed you from the source of harm so He could rebuild what was harmed. He silenced their voice so He could speak louder. And while they danced in denial, God danced over you in grace. Now the shift is visible. Not to everyone, but to you. You're no longer shaking at the mention of their name. You're no longer questioning your worth because of their rejection. You don't need closure from those who never truly opened their heart to you. Because God is the closure. God is the answer. God is the restoration. And with Him your peace returns, not as it was, but stronger, deeper, unshakable. While they, those who never thought they'd be haunted, are beginning to hear the echo of your name in their memory, the echo of your goodness in their emptiness, the echo of your peace in their chaos. And these echoes will not go away, because they came not from your voice, but from the silence you left behind. That silence is now their mirror. It shows them the truth they tried to escape. It reflects the damage they thought they buried. It forces them to sit with the version of themselves they created when they thought hurting you would set them free. But they are not free. They are bound by the very harm they thought would liberate them. And this is what God does, not to torture, but to teach. He uses the same weight they placed on you to weigh on their spirit, not because He is cruel, but because He is just. And justice does not always arrive with lightning. It arrives with stillness that grows heavier each day. You will start to notice how their confidence weakens, how their circle shrinks, how their words lose power, not immediately but gradually, and you will not gloat, because by then your heart will be too full of peace to make room for pride. You will simply observe and understand. This is what happens when you touch what God has blessed, when you disrupt the soul of someone He was healing, when you wound someone He was using. There is no hiding from that kind of justice. So what do you do now? You rest. You let God continue what He started. You walk in your restored peace like armor. You bless even those who hurt you, not because they deserve it, but because you're no longer living from a place of pain. You're living from a place of purpose. And when they look at you, they will not see the broken version they left. They will see the glory of what God can do when peace is returned by the hands of heaven. They will see strength wrapped in stillness, confidence clothed in grace, and they will feel the loss, not of you, but of the peace they can never regain, the same way they stole it. Because peace is not stolen, it is given. And once it is taken unjustly, only God can decide who gets it back. Some people think peace is just an emotion, but to those who've been through heartbreak, betrayal, and deep personal wounds, peace becomes sacred. It becomes a breath of life after suffocation. And when someone intentionally disrupts that peace, when they disturb the quietness of your soul with lies, manipulation, or cruelty, something eternal is triggered, because God doesn't just restore what was taken. He allows the takers to feel what they've done. You see, you are not weak for being calm. You are not foolish for staying silent. You are wise in your restraint. You had every right to explode, to lash out, to expose the truth, but you didn't. You gave it to God. You chose grace over vengeance. And now, in a divine exchange, God is taking that pain and crafting it into judgment, not to destroy them, but to show them what peace really is. Because only when someone loses what they took for granted do they understand its value. They didn't just break your heart, they violated your safety, they disrupted your sanctuary, they mocked your trust, and in doing so they offended heaven. You didn't need to cry out for revenge. Your tears were louder than any scream. Your silence carried more power than any curse. And God, who inhabits your heart, felt every tremble. Every time you held your breath so you wouldn't break. Every time you wiped your face and pretended to be okay. He counted those moments. And now he is responding. What does his response look like? It looks like unrest settling over them like a fog. It looks like nights filled with noise and mornings drained of joy. It looks like blessings slipping through their fingers without explanation. It looks like everything they once enjoyed becoming a source of confusion. Because when you hurt someone who did nothing but try to love you, you don't walk away clean. You carry the weight of that betrayal, whether you acknowledge it or not. And that weight grows. At first it feels like inconvenience, then discomfort, then emotional heaviness, then spiritual panic, until eventually they start to question what's wrong. But they won't connect the dots immediately. They'll blame circumstances, people, even fate, but deep down they will know. It started the day they harmed you, the day they stole something divine and treated it as disposable. You were not disposable. You were a gift. And now, the absence of your presence, the quiet strength you brought, will echo in every room they enter. They'll search for the peace they had when they were around you, but find only surface replacements, shallow laughter, temporary highs, empty success. None of it will satisfy. Because you weren't just another person. You were a carrier of peace. And that peace was a reflection of God's favor, a favor they treated with contempt. But here's the truth. They can't fix it on their own. No amount of apologies spoken in their head can restore what they destroyed. Only God can rewrite this story. And until they kneel, until they confess, until they feel the full weight of what they did, the unrest will stay. Not because you cursed them, but because God has chosen to use their peace as the currency of justice. And you are not waiting for their downfall. You are walking into your restoration. Every day, your soul breathes deeper. Every moment, your spirit finds clarity. You don't need to chase explanations anymore. You don't need to beg for acknowledgement. Your peace is no longer attached to their apology. It's rooted in God's presence. And in that presence, you will find everything they tried to take. Joy, stillness, freedom. You will smile without guilt, laugh without fear, sleep without racing thoughts. Because God didn't just return your peace. He upgraded it. He purified it. He built it on a foundation that no betrayal can touch. Meanwhile, they will wrestle. They will face their reflection, and it will speak the truth they tried to bury, not out of cruelty, but because God is not mocked. What is sown must be reaped, and what was broken must be accounted for. Their peace was borrowed. It came through you, and when they destroyed you, they lost access to it. This is not your burden to carry anymore. You are not the fixer. You are not the healer. You are not the one who needs to make it right. God has taken over. And when He takes over, even the proud are brought low. Even the silent are confronted. Even the ones who walked away thinking they won find themselves haunted by the cost. They thought they escaped judgment, but what they didn't realize is that peace itself was the judgment. It covered them while they were near you. It followed them because of the grace that surrounded you. And now, that grace has been withdrawn. Not because you asked, but because God decided it was time. Time for healing, time for justice, time for the divine reversal. So let your heart rest, let your mind be still. And if you ever wonder whether God saw what they did, the answer is yes. And now He's showing them. There was a time when you lived in confusion, trying to make sense of what happened. You tried to convince yourself that maybe they didn't mean to hurt you. Maybe you misunderstood. Maybe if you were better, kinder, more forgiving, more tolerant, they wouldn't have walked all over you. You carried the burden of their behavior like it was your own failure. You searched for logic where there was only manipulation. You searched for humanity in people who had no intention of valuing yours. And that search exhausted your soul. That was the true theft. Not just the betrayal itself, but the way it made you question everything about yourself. But now that fog is clearing. Slowly but surely you're beginning to see that their actions weren't a reflection of your worth, but of their own spiritual poverty. You gave peace, they gave pain. You gave effort, they gave excuses. And while you spiraled in self-doubt, they strutted through life as if destroying you was a minor inconvenience. They slept well while you lay awake with racing thoughts and unanswered questions. And yet, even in all that chaos, you held on. Not perfectly, but faithfully. You didn't seek destruction, you sought understanding. And where there is sincere longing for truth, God always answers. Their peace, the one they flaunted while you suffered, is now under divine fire. They no longer walk with the same lightness. Something has shifted. Their smiles are tight. Their energy is off. They no longer carry the careless confidence they once did. That's not your imagination. It's the spiritual law unfolding. Because when someone harms the heart of another, especially someone who loved purely, the universe does not stay silent. Heaven does not ignore the imbalance. God Himself leans into that moment and He begins to reverse what was done. It may not be loud, it may not be dramatic, but it is undeniable. You once begged for closure. Now they beg for clarity within themselves. You once searched for healing. Now they search for meaning in the ruins of their own making. That's the exchange. That's the quiet judgment that no courtroom can deliver. And you no longer need to be their teacher. You are no longer their emotional sponge. You've graduated from that chapter, and now you walk as someone rebuilt by grace, stronger, quieter, unmoved by their chaos. Because you've seen what divine peace feels like, and it does not tremble in the presence of guilt. Let them remember the way you showed up, the way you lowered your voice when theirs rose, the way you offered truth while they twisted lies. Let them replay the scenes where you chose patience over pride, loyalty over leverage. Let those memories keep them company in the quiet, because they will remember not the version of you they rejected, but the version of you they can never find again, and that memory will echo in their silence, the same way your cries once echoed in yours. What's remarkable about God is that He doesn't just deliver peace, He teaches through it. He allows you to walk through valleys, so when you stand on the mountain, you don't mistake the view for a gift you earned. You know it was grace. And now you also know the price of losing it. That's the revelation your enemies now face. The peace they abused is the very thing they'll spend years trying to find again. You are not bitter. You are not vengeful. You are aware. And in that awareness, you no longer seek justice from people who live in denial. You rest in the assurance that justice belongs to God, and what He does in secret is more powerful than anything done in public. He doesn't just level the scales, He recalibrates the spirit. So while their world looks intact, their inner world begins to fracture, not because you cursed them, but because God is restoring balance. And sometimes balance looks like broken sleep. Sometimes it looks like failed plans. Sometimes it looks like a life that keeps spinning in circles because peace no longer resides there. And for you, it looks like stability, like laughter without pain, like mornings that start with gratitude instead of grief. Your peace will begin to intimidate them. Your presence will become their reminder, not because you seek revenge, but because God's hand on your life speaks louder than any words ever could. To continue forward. No need to look back. The days of proving your pain are over. The nights of wondering if they'll ever understand are behind you. Let them live in the stillness they once sentenced you to. Let them hear the echoes they once ignored, because while they lose sleep searching for what they gave away, you are sleeping peacefully, covered by the one who never left your side. There is a strange and divine poetry to the way life unfolds. Those who once shattered your calm are now haunted by the fragments they created. The same hands that scattered your peace now struggle to hold their own world together. And it didn't require your retaliation. It didn't require your voice to rise. All it took was time, and the presence of God working silently behind the veil. Because real justice never rushes. It moves slowly with purpose and leaves no soul untouched. They believed peace was theirs to keep regardless of how they treated you. They assumed they could dismantle your soul and walk away untouched. But peace is never guaranteed. It's a sacred covering, and once someone violates that sacredness, they lose the privilege of its presence. That's what they're realizing now. Slowly, painfully, they are becoming acquainted with the silence you once knew. But unlike you, they don't have the innocence to carry them through it. You were hurt, but innocent. They are haunted and guilty. That difference is everything. You see, guilt is louder than sorrow. It whispers constantly, reminding the soul of what was done and who it was done to. It steals moments of joy and replaces them with flickers of regret. It invades peace like a fog, blinding the soul from clarity. And no matter how much they smile, succeed, or surround themselves with noise, guilt stays. Because peace that comes at the cost of another's spirit is not peace at all, it's a performance, and it always ends. Let them sit with what they did. You don't have to remind them. Life will. Their own thoughts will. God will. They will remember the softness they destroyed, the loyalty they mocked, the trust they trampled. And each time they see someone like you, they'll feel the weight of who they were and what they've lost. That's the kind of grief that doesn't leave quietly. It lingers, it confronts, it teaches. You, on the other hand, are becoming whole. Not because life suddenly became perfect, but because you stopped expecting peace from those who live in war with themselves. You realize that peace doesn't come from people. It comes from alignment with the one who formed you. And now that you've found it again, you protect it. You no longer explain yourself to those who choose confusion. You no longer hand your peace to people who treat it like dust. You've been through too much to allow anyone to disrupt your healing. And that healing? It's radiant. It draws people in without effort. It makes the ones who hurt you uncomfortable, not because you seek revenge, but because you are evidence of what they can never undo. You survived what was meant to break you. You flourished after they counted you out. And now, your presence is a reminder that God never abandoned you, even when they did. Don't be surprised if they try to reach out, not because they care, but because their soul is tired. They will speak in riddles, hoping you will ease their guilt. But that is not your assignment. You are not the balm for their conscience. You are not the one to fix what they refuse to face. Your role now is to live in peace, protect it, and let God continue the work He started, both in you and in them. Peace is not passive, it's powerful. It is the armor you now wear, forged through pain, refined by endurance, and sealed by the hand of God. And when people look at you, they will see it. Not just in your smile, but in your stillness, in your eyes, in your spirit. They will see someone who has passed through fire, but did not come out smelling like smoke, and they will wonder how you moved on, how you healed, how you forgave without ever being asked, how you rebuilt without their help. And the answer will not be found in anything you say, but in the quiet power of your peace. God didn't just give it back to you, He expanded it. You're no longer living in fragments, you're whole. And the beauty of it all is that no one can steal it again, because you've learned the cost of giving it away. You now know that anyone who disturbs your spirit doesn't deserve a seat at your table. And that discernment is a gift from God, one you will carry forever. So breathe deeply. You've made it through. Not everyone will understand your journey, but they will feel the result. And the ones who once shattered your calm, they will carry the echo of your peace as their silent teacher. God doesn't always punish in public, but He always teaches. And sometimes the lesson is not fire from heaven, but the absence of the very thing they stole. That's the justice of God, not loud, but lasting. And you're free. Free from their chaos. Free from the trauma. Free from the need to be understood by those who never truly saw you. Because God saw you, and He made sure they'll never forget what they lost the day they chose to hurt someone who carried His peace.